Hello, welcome back to my MCU ranking for 2017, part 2, numbers 11 to 6. Last time we looked at numbers 17 to 12, which are 4 for Dark World, Ant-Man, Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk, 4, and Captain America Civil War at 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, and 12, respectively. And now we're looking at 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, and 6. So kicking off with number 11 is actually a really good film, and I'm actually a bit disappointed. I'm actually disappointed with myself for putting it down on this low on the list. But it is the better of the 2016 films, and that is Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is a brilliant, enjoyable, and visually stunning film with a great story and a great character, or great characters I should say. I just think maybe some of the others are a bit better, and that's probably why it's this low on the list. It's not even in the top 10 anymore, which is a shame. I like the development of Doctor Strange as the character. I like how he battles the villains, works with his allies, and there is some emotional depth to him with his relationships with the Great One and to his friends. The love interest isn't that great, but she doesn't get much to do, to be honest. And the villain, I will say, one thing I will say about Civil War, one thing that it did better than this film is that it had a better villain. Despite Mads Mikkelsen's great performance, his character, Kai Helios, and also Dormammu, who had motion capture by Benedict Cumberbatch, they weren't that great as villains. Dormammu could be a bigger presence in a future film, but a bit like Thanos is going to be. But at this moment, he wasn't that great. He was alright. And Kai Helios was just okay. But this film is a really good film. I do recommend you check this out. And you don't have to worry about seeing Civil War before it. They only mention the Avengers once, and also there's a scene at the end featuring Thor, but that's it. So go check out Doctor Strange, you will really like it. Okay, number 10. This one might surprise you. Surprising that I put this below both Doctor Strange and Captain America Civil War, and maybe also Thor. And that is Captain America, the First Avenger. So when I was swapping the Captain America films around for this ranking, this one pretty much stayed where it was, halfway between the second and third ones. Originally, 3 was better than 2, 2 was better than 3, sorry, I should say it again, that 3 was the best, 2 was the weakest, and this one was in the middle. However, after recent rewatches of 2 and 3, they swapped places, and this just stayed where it was. So now 3 is below 1 and 2 is I consider the best. And this one is just staying where it is, really. And it's really with that shift of those 3 films and other films where it is on the list. I think it was originally 10th anyway, actually. To be honest, 10th or 11th. So yeah, this is actually a really good film. I'm not sure why people just don't like it, or not as much as the others. I think it's a pretty cool war action film with some sci-fi elements thrown in for good measure. It's a ton of fun and really good. Granted, it doesn't give as much of a depressing picture of what happens in the war like other films, such as Wonder Woman do. But the film is mostly about Captain America fighting this fictional science division of the Nazis, who are real-life people, and trying to stop them using this brand new technology that is futuristic even by today's standards. Thanks to this little cube known as the Tesseract that they found in Norway, and this Tesseract so happens to be one of the Infinity Stones, or contain one of them at least. And it's just that great story, as well as also the stuff in the future where present, where Captain America wakes up and discovers he's slept for nearly 70 years. And the film pretty much ends there, minus the post-credit scene, so that we can see his reaction to the modern day world in The Avengers, or Avengers Assemble, and The Winter Soldier, which is a bit more of a fish out of water story until it becomes a bit more spy thriller. So yeah, this one's an action war film with sci-fi thrown in, and Winter Soldier is a bit of a spy thriller. That after the fish out of water film, before you get to the Civil War, which has a bit more of the 2 and 3 have a bit of a political side to them, 3 more so. It also has a bit of a revenge story, I suppose, with the villain's revenge and later Tony Stark's, and also Black Panther's. So, moving on to number 9. Number 9 is the only one I have not got a DVD or Blu-ray for because it's only just come out in cinemas. Number 9 is Thor Ragnarok. Originally I had this above SpiderMan Homecoming and had that as the least favourite of the 3 of this year. However, a recent rewatch of SpiderMan Homecoming convinced me to put it a bit higher. Thor Ragnarok is easily the best of the trilogy for me. It is a bit, probably because it's more fun, although that does mean it is changing the tone from the other films. It does, however, contradict the second film by having Thor and Jane apparently being split up off screen. That was annoying. Considering the entire point of the second film was to save her, as well as stop the Dark Elves using the Dark Matter and the Infinity Stone, the red one. But besides that, it was an enjoyable film. Thor and Hulk really great together. Hela was a great villain, one of the best. The Grandmaster, he was fun, total fun. Valkyrie was a great female lead. Carl Urban's character was great done as the guy who just wanted some power, and in the end he realised, I'm going to save these people. Hey Hela, I'm back. So, no, that doesn't play out exactly like that, but it's good enough. He does look a bit cowardice when he is trying to escape her, but in the end, he does come to the rescue. And, of course, Loki is great as usual, and Odin's final moments are great. I mean, he has a great scene with Doctor Strange. Although, mind you, I think it is a bit rushed with him just going all around, using his magic, going around the place. It does feel like cut there, we're cutting here and there, and it's just going a bit fast at this moment. Yeah, it slows down a little bit later on, but at this point it's quite fast. And we also have a good film with, well, what looks like the devil, but it's not the devil, underground, and then he's brought back to life to cause Ragnarok so that they can defeat Hela and escape. And yeah, it's just a ton of fun, and I'm glad the stuff on the planet with the Grandmaster doesn't take up too much of the runtime. I thought they were going to be there longer, to be honest. Sadly, to allow that to happen, Paddington 2 had to allow longer in his prison. So, if you lose the time you thought you were going to get there, and actually have more time on another film that you thought there wasn't going to be too much time in. Boy. Well, that's films for you. But besides that, it's a really good film, very enjoyable. I do understand why people are not so happy with it, because it does feel like it is trying to be Guardians of the Galaxy. It's basically Thor trying to be Guardians of the Galaxy and losing the seriousness of the other 2 films. But I still think the story is better than the other 2 films, and maybe that's one thing they got right when trying to be Guardians of the Galaxy. Of course, they're not as good as Guardians of the Galaxy or Volume 2, but I suppose maybe their attempts to be like Guardians, it makes them better than the other 2. Though there isn't that much of a mythology like in the first one. That is a step down, but overall, this is a pretty good film and is easily the best of the trilogy. Though, to be honest, I would take the first one over the second one any day. So, if there was only 2 of them, I would take the first one over the second one any day. But the third one is the best, for me at least. I know a lot of people would say the first one, which I understand. I do not quite understand this one being considered the weakest, with the Dark World existing If The Dark World wasn't a 4 film, then I could see why people would consider this one a weaker installment. But The Dark World is a 4 film, so it's people saying The Dark World is better than this. Fair enough, that's your opinion, but I don't quite understand why, because The Dark World... Oh boy. I already talked about it, but... yeah. Let's move on to happier stuff. Number 8. Now, people will probably be happier about this film being higher than Civil War than First Avenger, and that is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Arguably considered one of the best, if not the best, MCU film, arguably alongside the Avengers Assemble and Civil War itself. The Winter Soldier is a great action-packed spy thriller that just so happens to be a superhero film, and it's very enjoyable. Like I said, this was originally lower down on my list, but after a rewatch, it's really good and very enjoyable. And yeah, I pretty much prefer the story of this one to Civil War, and it has a lot more going for it. It doesn't kind of shake up the MCU as Civil War does, but it doesn't need to. It just has to introduce a new element into it, or reintroduce it, so it can play out later on in Civil War and Infinity War, as well as giving us a shake around before we get to the next Avengers film. And yeah, it does a really good job at that. It's letting the hearers know, oh, things aren't going to go as smoothly as you thought it was after Avengers Assemble, although pretty much Iron Man 3 and Dark World pretty much also showed that. And yeah. And also, this film has along with Avengers 2 and Guardians 2, have reinstated my trust in second films in the series. So maybe Ant-Man and the Wasp will be a good one. I'm actually a bit worried for that one as well. Though that's mainly because it's an Ant-Man sequel, rather than the second being a sequel. As for third films in the franchise, well, Avengers Infinity War I'm looking forward to a lot. And Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and also Spider-Man's 2 and 3, MCU ones, that is. But then again, it's because the first one was so good. So, next up is number 7. Number 7 is a really good installment and a really enjoyable film, and that is, it only just slightly beats Winter Soldier at being the best film of the year, Guardians of the Galaxy from 2014. Dropped it. Yeah. Just like Doctor Strange beating Civil War, this one just beats Winter Soldier at being the best of 2014. And it's a hell of a lot of fun. The story is great, the character is great. They do spend a bit of time in the prison, but not as much as Thor on the Planet in Thor Ragnarok or Paddington in Paddington 2. just get throwing that out there. And then after that, they are allowed to have this big adventure, which is really cool. And they work as a team very well. They have this conflict, but they learn to work with each other as they try to stop Ronan the Destroyer and Nebula trying to get their hands on one of the Infinity Stones, the purple one. And it's really cool. And the final stand is great. And eventually they decided to work with each other from then on in, and just go around saving the day, having a lot of fun, being the Guardians of the Galaxy, so to speak. And it's a hell of a lot of fun, and yeah, it's really good. And of course, you've got two extremely memorable and popular characters in the form of the two CGI ones, Rocket Raccoon and Groot. Yeah, the other characters are pretty popular, but those two are considered two of the most popular of this franchise, and it's probably partially due in thanks to the performances of Bradley Cooper as Rocket and Vin Diesel as Groot, who are both perfectly cast, as are Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana and Dave Bautista as Peter Quill / Star-Lord. I know her name, I'm just trying to remember it. Gamora and Drax the Destroyer. They are all perfectly cast, and Benicio del Toro is brilliant as the Collector. Apparently he's the Grand Master's brother, so maybe we'll see something with between something that happened between those two, or a reference to each other in a later film. The Collector will be returning for Infinity War, so we'll see what happens there. Okay, rounding out part 2 of this list with number 6 is a more recent film to Guardians of the Galaxy, and that is the second of the 3 2016 films, which I recently rewatched and did a Blu-ray review on it. Yeah, you know the one. It's the one you've all been waiting for, besides the ones you've all been waiting for. Here it comes now, SpiderMan Homecoming. Now, this movie is fantastic. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's brilliant. It's a really good installment in the series. I know a lot of people have said, oh, it's just another Marvel movie. Yeah, but it's another Marvel movie featuring Spider-Man. With Spider-Man in the MCU, you can't do wrong, because, well, you can't go any lower than the Amazing Spider-Man. In most people's cases, the Amazing Spider-Man 2. So, having this installment in your franchise after 2 ones, and a lot of people would say Spider-Man 3 is a bad film as well. So a lot of people would say, oh, I'm saying it's the best movie since Spider-Man 2. I would say it's the best one since Spider-Man 1, the first one, the original, which I still think is slightly better than this, because of the story it tells. However, this movie is just so enjoyable, so much fun, it's so great. If you see my ranking of the Spider-Man films, this one comes second only after the original 2002 Spider-Man film, and it's just brilliant. And yeah, I just love this film. It's not one of the best of the series. First, it just misses out from being in the top 10, but it's still a really good film, and I really love it. And I'm not sure why, but it just rocks so much, this installment. And also, Michael Keaton's villain is fantastic. He's my favourite villain of the MCU, at least of this year. He's probably second favourite after Loki. We'll see what Thanos can do next year. And in fact, the 2017 films, as well as having been 3 of the better films of the series, 3 great installments, 2 of which are 2 of the greatest in the franchise, we also have pretty much 3 brilliant main villains. Ego, the Vulture, and Hela are 3 of the best main villains. And I also like the Shockers in these ones. The first one doesn't get that much to do, but the second one's pretty good in what he has to do. But in terms of and the Tinkerer, he's good. I think he's going to appear again. But the Vulture is just a brilliant villain, both evilly and as his normal everyday person who just trying to do what he can for his family. And he can actually be a bit scary in some of those scenes where he's just driving the car. He's like, good old Spider-Man. That was a really, really good scene. So, yeah, and Tom Holland might actually be the best Spider-Man to date. To be honest, I wasn't sure with him in Civil War. I was going to wait Civil War to make my opinion on him, and then I was like, I'm not quite sure just yet. Let's wait till to Homecoming. So Homecoming, wow, he is brilliant, as he's the best Spider-Man and Peter Parker. I mean, I like Tobey Maguire, I like Andrew Garfield when it was their turns, but with Tom Holland, at least with this, certainly with this film, and maybe also on a rewatch of Civil War just before we saw Homecoming, he was the best. Certainly after seeing this one, I considering the best of the Spider-Man actors. So yeah, Tom Holland to date is the best live-action Spider-Man, or at least the best actor to play Spider-Man on the big screen so far. And yeah, considering that this film is one of the best of the Spider-Man series, and one of the best of the MCU, it's pretty much almost perfect. I think it would have been even better if they had killed off the villain at the end. If they'd killed off the Vulture at the end, it probably would be the best film of the series. Not best film of the series, one of the best films in the series, and maybe even the best Spider-Man film. but they didn't kill him off. That was disappointing. They used to kill them off in the Sam Raimi trilogy quite a bit, but then they started to stop, and then the new Amazing ones they didn't, apart from Electro. And this one, they didn't kill off any of the villains. So I think, well, actually, yeah, they killed off the first Shocker, but I think if the Vulture had died, this one probably would be, this would be top 5 MCU film ranking, and would possibly, maybe just knock out the original as the best film in the series. Maybe, just about. It'd certainly be closer. But what it is, it's still a great film in the series, and I really love it. So, now we move on to the top 5. And that will end out part 2. So let's list them up so far. Number 17 is For the Dark World. Number 16 is Ant-Man. Iron Man 2. 14, The Incredible Hulk. 13, 12, Captain America Civil War. 11, Doctor Strange. 10, Captain America The First Avenger. 9, Thor Ragnarok. 8, Captain America The Winter Soldier. 7, Guardians of the Galaxy. And 6, SpiderMan Homecoming. And also that film would have maybe even gotten a 10 out of 10 if the villain had got killed off. Because I gave it a 9 in my review. So tune in next time for part 3 of my ranking, where we count down the top 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. See what is the best film of the MCU. Spoiler alert, my opinion has not changed since when I first saw this film. And I hadn't even seen most of the others hadn't seen them. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. And eventually,